Kate Scarlata, and I'm a registered dietitian at Fody Digestive Peace of Mind.
Hello, I'm Toni Fiori. I'm also a registered dietitian, also working at Fody Digestive Peace of Mind.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about a little recap of the sessions that we saw at Digestive Disease Week in Chicago. This happened this May, where many gastroenterologists and researchers from around the globe talk about their latest research in the area of digestive diseases. And so we have a few things that we highlighted that we'd like to talk about. Additionally, today is World IBD Day, and IBD stands for
Getting excited.
inflammatory bowel disease, and this impacts about 5 million people around the globe. And in honor of World IBD Day, Toni and I have been embarking on using enteral nutrition formula. This is one dietary therapy that's used for patients that have inflammatory bowel disease to help quiet their disease status. So inflammatory bowel disease in brief encompasses primarily ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, so you may have heard those terms. And like I said, this is an area where we really need to see more research. Why don't we talk a little bit about that, because that was one area that we learned about at Digestive Disease Week.
One study that's coming to mind, we were talking about the rapid increase in Asia over the past decade. And that kind of shows, I think, the correlation with the impact that diet might have on inflammatory bowel disease. Asia has become more westernized. So now research is focusing on how these environmental factors that diet is included in there can impact the gut microbiome, the microbiota, the players living in the gut that might contribute to inflammation.
Exactly, and I think, we're really seeing a lot in Asia. They're looking at just the onset of reflux, but also inflammatory bowel disease. So that was sort of something that came out a little bit during Digestive Disease Week. And of course, most of our followers are interested in irritable bowel syndrome, as that's what we practice mostly in our practice. 40 million Americans are impacted by IBS. And it's really the most expensive disorder because of just the vast numbers of patients that are impacted. And in order to get an IBS diagnosis, you really have to go through a number of different tests, and it's sort of a diagnosis of exclusion. So it costs a lot of money, and patients are really kind of burdened by all the treatments or testing, really. So Mark Pimentel chatted at one of the sessions just talking about the use of rifaximin and how that can be used as one of the treatments for irritable bowel syndrome, particularly those that have a diarrhea predominance. And rifaximin is FDA approved for use in patients with IBS-D. And it appears, based on their research, that individuals that are younger in age or have less severe cases seem to do better with rifaximin and have less relapsing, where individuals that have more severe IBS, they just don't have the durable effect of using the antibiotics. So it's just interesting to see that the more severe the case and the older the individual, the less likely that rifaximin will really offer benefit, while the younger patients tend to fare a little bit better. So what else?
That kind of just brought me to the next thing, trying to put, some of the practices we use, because we don't prescribe antibiotics, but some of the research that was presented actually showed benefit to some of the supplements most of the supplements we are using, which was very exciting. Peppermint oil was used to be effective in abdominal pain because of the antispasmodic properties of peppermint oil. So that was exciting to see. We use that all the time in our practice. And also, I don't know how much research is there. I don't think it was touched upon, but it has antimicrobial properties. So for speaking of the bacterial overgrowth population, I think it would be helpful.
Absolutely. So we definitely use a lot and recommend. A lot of our patients do experience pain. In fact, pain is one of sort of the key points or symptoms that patients with IBS experience. So absolutely peppermint oil. And then they also brought up Iberogast, right? So that's another supplement that is produced in Germany, and we talked about Iberogast in our bloating video. You might want to check that out. And Iberogast has a unique like herbal blend. I think there's 8 herbs. Kind of almost spasms the intestine to propel things through, helps with bloating, and has really good research to support its use. And it was really great to hear that being at a session and having those 2 supplements. Really, of all the supplements, they said those were the most, the greatest efficacy in IBS. So we felt like, yes, we're on top of it.
Yes, and that everyone's kind of working together. Like when we might recommend that, their GI is going to be thinking the same thing. It's nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about Beano and using enzymes?
All about the supplements today, I think. So Caroline Tuck, one of our favorites, presented this one from Monash University. They were talking about the role of a Beano-like product, I'll say. So the enzyme to break down GOS, which would be the beans and the nuts in the high FODMAP foods, that can contribute to digestive symptoms. They found when people took a digestive enzyme like Beano, they were able to consume the product without having the symptoms.
Exactly. So they could eat a little bit more beans and not become symptomatic. So foods with GOS, if you use Beano, which is a galactosidase,
I avoid using that.
It breaks down those sugar chains and helps your body digest them a little bit better. And previously, all the research in this area with this enzyme was done by the company Beano. So it's nice to have an independent study being done. Interesting point.
Say it. So Beano, you found this, but I just has mannitol, which is a high FODMAP. Were you going to say that, or was
no? I was going to say something else, but go ahead.
So I was too excited. So yes, you'd want to kind of look for a product that wouldn't spark other digestive symptoms. So we jotted down a few. Bean Assist has no FODMAP additives to it. So look
Bean Assist, and there was one other one.
I found Beanzyme that looked pretty good.
Okay, good. So those 2 products are better to look for. You can find them online. Like we said, Beano products do have mannitol. If mannitol is not a problem for you, you certainly could try the Beano. I thought what was interesting in this study that Caroline talked about was that with the use of the enzyme, the hydrogen production, so the fermentation that happens when you consume beans, the hydrogen levels didn't really change. So symptoms improved, but the hydrogen or the fermentation of the beans still occurred. So why would symptoms improve if you're still fermenting? So I think that's interesting, and Toni and I were kind of talking about what could be some other things that might be happening.
What was that mean? So I have a feeling, and back me up here if you agree, that hydrogen is just one of the gases that we measure for the bacteria to produce. So if your symptoms are improving, there might be another gas that your bacteria was producing.
Absolutely. Carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. So looking more at other gases. And then also too, bacteria produce gas, which can cause symptoms certainly. We know IBS, a lot of patients experience gas. But there's also metabolites too. So bacteria also produce metabolites when they're eating our carbs that we don't digest and produce other things that maybe irritate the lining of the colon or aggravate symptoms. So, that remains to be seen. We're learning a lot more, but it is good to know that a product like Beano can be used and you don't experience the same symptoms. So we say go for that, right? Awesome.
What else do we want to talk about?
So I think I want to talk a little bit about this diet that they did in Leuven, Belgium, and they looked at just volunteers, but they put them on a special diet, and it was a semi-vegetarian diet, very high in fiber, 30 grams. Most Americans only consume about 15, so it's double the fiber of a traditional American diet, which, as we know, what do we call that, a SAD, like They call it the sad diet because our diet's so pathetic. It was low also in saturated fats, low in sulfites, and also excluded added sugar and processed foods. And what I thought was interesting too, they also made sure that the diet was free of carrageenan and polysorbate 80. And these are two additives that only in animal studies, and really not a ton of studies, but both of these additives have been shown in animal studies, which doesn't always translate to humans, so it's just caution that they may contribute to gut inflammation. So this was a small study, just about 29 volunteers, but what they measured was fecal calprotectin, and this is a test that you measure in stool, and it tells us how if you are experiencing a level of gut inflammation. And all the patients or the volunteers that they screened had normal fecal calprotectin except for one, and I think they said that one went on to having inflammatory bowel disease.
So sorry.
Yeah, so we do screen it, for inflammatory bowel disease, but they were all normal. But on the diet, what happened was their fecal calprotectin even went lower, so even less potential inflammation in the gut, which is obviously a positive thing. The other thing they noticed with the high fiber and specialized diet was there was much more diversity in the microbiome, a variety of different microbes. So fiber is definitely microbes' favorite food, and so you're feeding different microbes, and this is allowing for a greater variety of microbes, which is associated with greater gut microbiome health. I think also what's important, and what I'm hearing more and more, is just fiber and the importance of fiber.
It was a big theme, I think, at the conference.
Definitely. And I think, there's so many diets out there that are geared towards reducing carbohydrates. And I think we have to be very cautious with that because there may be an impact on the gut microbiome. One study that I don't know that they talked about at DDW, but I think is important. This is an animal study. It was an international study where they put, again, animals don't always translate to humans, so use this with caution. But what they did was they put these special mice on a very low fiber diet, and what they found was the fiber, the microbes within the mice on the very low fiber diets, they actually started consuming the mucus layer inside the intestine. And the mucus layer, it's important to have a thick mucus layer. It protects our intestine, keeps what's supposed to stay in the gut. And so when you start degrading it, that increases your risk of developing other problems, making the gut more permeable. So in these animal studies, the low fiber really degraded that mucus layer because the microbes would eat the mucus layer because the mucus layer is made of carbohydrates, and they love carbohydrates. So again, just reiterating the point, get your fiber and get a variety of fibers. But in this same animal study, it was interesting. They added some prebiotic supplements to the mice. The mice diets, and those prebiotic fibers were not enough to change that degradation to the mucus layer. The other thing they found in this animal study was they put in a potential pathogen into the gut when the mucus layer was degraded, and that contributed to the advent of colitis. So this breakdown of the mucus layer increases probably our risk and susceptibility to developing colitis. So again, variety of fibers, not just one type of fiber, but a variety of fibers probably is the way to go. And obviously that's going to be individual. Some fibers are not well tolerated by everyone with IBS. So it's just trying to find the fibers that do work for you so that we feed our gut bacteria and we do not degrade our mucus layer. How about that?
I know, it's like this balance after this conference from deep diving into the science and for our non-science geeks out here, what does that mean? And I think eating more fiber in a way that is tolerated for you is going to be more and more important, shown to be more and more important. And just one other thought on that, Kate, when you were naming the parts of the diet that they limited, kind of goes back to our initial point about the increase of inflammatory bowel disease and with the westernized diet.
The
processed foods, high in saturated fat, not a lot of fiber. So if you're kind of picking up on this
theme, right?
Yes, you need a well-balanced, healthy, nutritious diet for most of the time.
Whole foods. Exactly. So what about what's next?
I think it's a good segue into the other study that I liked. It's a little bit off of IBS, but I think it goes into this theme of what we're eating, I think, as a world and what that's doing. So they were talking about obesity and the risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypercholesterolemia or high cholesterol, and this non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Yeah.
And that's coming up. And I think for me, I work with kids part of my job, and that is becoming more and more on the rise in kids, which we've never seen. So what did I jot down? Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease has more than doubled in teenagers in the past 20 years.
Crazy.
And we think, we're seeing that microbial changes are part of this impact due to the increase of high fat and saturated fat in the diet.
Yeah. So again, just really looking at the diet and modifying it and balancing it. And you might not think that these gut microbe changes would really make a big difference, but we're learning that so much of our health, it really resides in the health and balance of these gut microbes, and in learning to eat well so that we have a good microbiome and have less risk of these diseases.
One thing I didn't add is just with the inflammation, because it's hard to pinpoint what causes inflammation, but basically all the things that we're bringing up right now, high fat diet, or in this study they found higher inflammatory markers as well.
Right, and so many of these diseases that are associated with changes in the gut microbiome have inflammatory components: obesity, diabetes, heart disease, even IBS. A lot of patients have this microscopic inflammation, and certainly in IBD there's inflammation of inflammatory bowel disease, so we see that. So one other study that I wanted to talk about was looking at the role of Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a probiotic yeast, and reducing risk of C. difficile infection. And C. difficile diarrhea can occur after use of antibiotics, especially this broad spectrum antibiotics. And it comes with a high risk of, you could die from C. diff, and it certainly affects your quality of life. Current treatments for recurrent C. diff include fecal microbial transplants, and this is when you have healthy donor fecal matter actually put in either via caplets that you ingest or through a colonoscopy, and it has really good efficacy for treating C. difficile. But what if we could just add a probiotic supplement while we're undergoing antibiotics and reduce the risk of developing C. diff? That would be really the ideal. So they looked at this study looking at patients with really looking at how can we prevent it with this probiotic S. boulardii, which can be marketed as Florastor. You might know it as Florastor if you're looking for probiotics in the pharmacy. So they took healthy volunteers, and they had one group that received just antibiotics for 2 weeks, another group that received antibiotics for 7 days, and S. boulardii, the probiotic, and then the third group, they received the antibiotic alone for 1 week, and then they followed up with 14 days of the S. boulardii, so after the antibiotic therapy, and then the last group had no treatment whatsoever. And what they found was that in individuals that had the S. boulardii follow-up, so they had the antibiotic and then they were treated for 14 days with the S. boulardii, actually had a reduction in this bile acid. And the bile acid is called cholic acid. It's a primary bile acid. And that is produced in your liver. It's released into your intestine. And if that stays elevated, what it does is it actually germinates. It allows the C. difficile spores to grow. It's almost think of it as almost like fertilizer for the C. difficile infection, the way that it can grow, basically. And so by adding this S-Foulardi, for the 14 days, it converted this cholic acid to a secondary bile acid. The secondary bile acids are converted by microbes, and they do not increase risk of that seeding of the C. diff. So we want them to convert.
Yeah.
So by taking the Fluorostor, and I hope this isn't too confusing, it allowed a quicker conversion of that cholic acid to the secondary bile acid, which doesn't affect the growth of C. difficile or doesn't encourage it to grow. So I think this is just one more sort of piece of research to suggest maybe we do Fluorostor as a way to minimize risk of C. diff, especially in patients that are using more broad spectrum antibiotics, which, we discourage antibiotic use because of its impact on the gut microbiome, but the reality is some of us get infections that we need to treat. So I thought that was interesting. They're really trying to understand the mechanism, why C. diff grows in certain instances and what's the mechanism, and it seems these bile acids are playing a role. So I thought that was really interesting information to share today. One more thing I wanted to bring up just quickly, because there was a study too, and this was a study that wasn't shared at DDW, but what they did was in individuals that have lactose intolerance, they added a prebiotic galacto-oligosaccharide. So these are actually FODMAPs. So patients are experiencing lactose intolerance. They give them a little bit of this prebiotic fiber, the galacto-oligosaccharides, in a pill form, and they changed the colonic microbiome. And when they did that, it seemed to change the type of microbes that can metabolize lactose. So after a certain duration of this prebiotic fiber, patients that were intolerant to lactose became tolerant. And I really think this is important research, because what I see, probiotics can have some benefit. We just talked about that, and we see them benefiting on some of our patients. But I think if we can figure out a way to feed those microbes that already exist in our gut and change them to favor certain digestive pathways, that might in the long term really make a big difference. So I just wanted to introduce that to you. This is something that would have to be individualized, especially in IBS, because these short chain prebiotic fibers often contribute to symptoms.
I didn't realize we had a theme going on, but I think we totally do. The fiber. I think we're really need to
figure it out.
Focus on this.
Yeah.
So one last quick thing that I wanted to bring up, which really resonated with me and so many people that I know, going back to the IBS population too, actually, is this idea of slow, deep breathing. Not a new idea by any means, but so they did a study and found by doing slow, deep breathing, they increased the parasympathetic tone, which is basically your rest and digest system. I love that way of looking at it. So by doing this slow, deep breathing, they found that people experience less symptoms of pain.
It's amazing, and I think the whole connection between stress and de-stressing is so important for patients with digestive disease issues or symptoms. I just wrote a post about this, so feel free to check out my blog at katescarlata.com and just search stress management. But I do think we do see that stress itself alters the bacteria in our gut, makes our gut more permeable, and there's a big connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve. Bacteria can produce a number of different kind of chemicals, and that can travel between the brain and the gut. So I think that breathing and ways to sort of relax are going to be therapeutic beyond just quieting your mind. It's also going to be helpful for pain and some of the symptoms that patients experience.
Pain being heightened in IBS for sure. And I think, if you think about all the things that relax me, yoga, deep meditation, I guess. The end of yoga when you get to just lay there and breathe.
I love that.
Or a nice long run, you're deep breathing. So I think that we've known this for a while, but it was nice for them to isolate the breathing part and find good results.
Good results, absolutely. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to segue into some little snips from the expo at DDW. So you're going to have a chance to kind of see us in action, talking to different people, talking to Fody Foods and a number of different vendors that were in the expo, and you'll get a sense of kind of being at DDW with us.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. So thanks for listening.
There's still a chance.
Hey, we're here with Steven Singer from Fody Foods at DDW, and Steven is the founder of Fody Foods, obviously, and it's a low FODMAP food company. And Steven, tell us a little bit about your company and what you hope to do.
Well, I think we're very excited to offer low FODMAP, certified low FODMAP foods. They're all certified by Monash in Australia. And I guess the goal is that we can provide food for every eating occasion. So, you know, whether you're in an airport and need a bar on the run, or you're out and you want to have some ketchup with your French fries, or come home from work and you want to have pasta sauce, you know, salsa. You know, we try to make sure there's no garlic, no onions, and you know, no honey, a number of almonds. Even one of our favorite products, our trail mixes.
I love those.
Yeah, like individual package, so that you can throw one little package and you know, you eat the package, you're safe.
You're safe.
So that's really what it's all about. You know, try to kind of give people their, I don't want to say give them their life back, but give them their ability to eat without anxiety. They can go out to work, they can go out to eat, and we try to make sure they can enjoy life again.
Absolutely, and I think Toni and I know just from personal experience working with our patients, right? They love your products, and it has really made a big difference in their life.
It puts spontaneity back into eating, I think. Like cookout, people coming over, family dinner, you can just whip it together. For a lot of our patients, they haven't been able to do that for a long time.
I know. So we're really happy about that, and we kind of chow down those food.
We're the biggest fans.
Don't eat all of our products. It's not only for you guys.
I'm like, I've tried everything.
You know, there's actually 15% of the global population that have IBS. It's not just for you guys.
I know.
Okay.
It's a big deal when it's good for anyone, not just people on the diet.
Exactly.
But also it tastes good.
It does taste good.
One of the things very, very important for everybody at Fody is that, yes, you can make it low FODMAP and you can have it tested and certified, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't taste good, then it's not fair. Like, you don't have to feel like you're on a special diet. All of a sudden, you can actually eat this, you can enjoy it. I mean, my kids love this sauce. You know, the bars, they're like, Daddy, can I have another bar? I'm like, all right, but you know.
But save some.
I do the same for Kate, actually. Save some for the patient.
Exactly.
Save some for the dietitians that you like working with.
Yeah.
Can I call up my favorite? Because I think like we have our favorites with our patients.
Sure.
Being able to have soup.
Yeah, no, that's
Throw together a soup.
Absolutely.
It's
huge.
People get so angry about reading ingredients.
I know.
When you talk about natural flavors.
Are they angry?
Frustrated.
Challenge.
Yeah, it's
a lot
a challenge.
Of challenges. A lot of challenges.
You just buy it once. I can stretch out a few soups here.
Exactly.
So yeah, and you know, even little simple things, like you would think spice blends are, oh, you just put spices on, but they're, you know, all of a sudden we can find spice blends without garlic, without onion, whether it be for chicken or fish or
The taco seasoning, which patients, and they don't even realize that
Simple
there's onion in them. That's the thing.
So,
My favorite, the bars, of course. Hello, chocolate. No, but I love these because I travel a ton and I have them always in my carry-on bag in case I'm hungry, and I do follow a modified low FODMAP diet, so it's nice to have stuff on the run for me. I love it. So grateful for Fody Foods and glad we caught up with them at DDW.
absolutely. Thanks for being here, guys. It's awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
So many of you might not know, but my background and training was at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, many, many years ago in my dietetic internship group. And today at DDW, I'm here with 3 amazing gastroenterologists, also that work at the Brigham and Women's Hospital.
I'm Allison Golden. I work in motility.
I'm YK Lowe. I also work in motility both at the Brigham and at the VA.
I'm Jennifer Inra. I do general gastroenterology.
so glad to introduce Kelly and Melissa, both from Madison, Wisconsin, dietitian colleagues, well educated in the low FODMAP diet, and we're just going to talk a little bit about their experience working with IBS patients. So Kelly, do you find that it's just life-changing for patients to go on the diet?
Absolutely life-changing. I feel like patients are able to eat more calories, find more options. They're not so scared of going places after they've learned that they have a FODMAP intolerance, and they can just really regain those things back in their life that they enjoy. Being more social, exercising.
I know, because it can be so isolating, and I think having the tools to employ the diet that we can offer as dietitians can really make a difference. So tell us a little bit about your experience working with IBS patients.
I've worked with IBS patients for about 6 years, and I've been teaching the diet for about that long, and it seems that just about everybody is impacted in some way positively. Very few people come back and say that didn't help me at all. So it's definitely something we use every day, consistently, and we continue to follow those patients for weeks and months at a time to make sure they're still doing well and expanding their diet variety.
I love that. So the bottom line is we want to expand variety, and dietitians can help when utilizing the low FODMAP diet. So thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Hi, so right now I'm here with Karen Lundgren from Nestle Health Science, and I'm really happy to introduce her to you because Nestle Health Science has kind of jumped on this low FODMAP awareness campaign, and I want Karen to share a little bit about what they're doing for you low FODMAP followers out there in the trenches.
Great. Well, we're so excited to be here at DDW. It's the first ever for Nestle Health Science. Now that we've launched a new gut health platform, really recognizing how many millions and millions of people suffer with different gastrointestinal symptoms and are following a low FODMAP diet. So we launched the first ever oral nutrition supplement specifically for people that are following a low FODMAP diet. And we're featuring it here today, and really just very, very excited about it. It's just great. It's great for breakfast. It's great for on the go because, as you know, Kate, people who follow the low FODMAP diet can struggle to find options for them, and so it's just a great convenient option that they can get at a local retailer.
Now, what retailers would they maybe go check out?
Yes, so a lot of the pharmacy channels. We have some in grocery, and also, of course, online.
Now, I thought I heard through the grapevine that Wegmans is offering them.
Yes.
The Love Nourish. Did I hear that?
Yes. Actually, it's really exciting. Wegmans is really behind this. They very much cater to their customers who have special dietary needs.
Yes.
And so, yes, you can get Pro Nourish at your local Wegmans.
Yay! So the flavors are chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry banana. So it's called Pro Nourish, and it's a low FODMAP certified nutritional drink, and it has its place for those patients that need something that they know will not trigger symptoms, and is a quick grab and go, very nourishing beverage. Hey guys, so we're about to take a journey through the colon and point out some various conditions that might occur inside your colon.
Like thumbs up. So we see here normal colon tissue. Like to take a look.
This would be Crohn's disease, which is an inflammatory bowel disease that can occur anywhere in your digestive tract. It's an inflammatory bowel disease. Here we go.
Polyps, malignant polyps. This poor colon is not doing so.
And then as we move down here, you can see an advanced colon cancer. So let's flip on this side. We've got more malignant lining of the colon cancer, and additional polyps. And your gastroenterologist would be removing these. I'm here with Sam Slattery from Otsuka, who does breath testing with checking for H. pylori, a breath testing capacity. And we were just talking a little bit about the difference between H. pylori breath testing and the blood testing. And could you just tell us a little bit about the differences and maybe pros and cons?
Sure, yeah. So the biggest difference is that breath testing and stool for H. pylori are tests for active infection. Serology, blood testing, it's only an antibody test. So what that means is that, you know, it's just a test of exposure. Am I doing this right?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm breaking character on you. But are you going to edit it or something? What happens here?
You know what? We're really, you know, to be honest with you, we like outtakes like this. So you're probably going to be included in that.
Where is this going to go?
Just so basically, what Sam,
I don't know what just happened. Now I'm talking to a camera about H. pylori. I have no idea
so
what just
Sam
happened.
is saying is that probably the breath test is the more accurate way to go, and maybe forego doing the blood test for H. pylori. So thank you.